In the vast expanse of space, Admiral Park stood motionless before the massive holographic display that dominated the command center. His weathered face reflected the blue glow of the screen as he studied the images with intense concentration. The Drachnid warships appeared as dark, angular shapes against the star-filled background, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had first detected the unusual energy signatures 3 days ago. The patterns were unlike anything human sensors had encountered before, and they were moving with purpose, directly toward Earth. Park's hands tightened behind his back as he remembered the initial reports crossing his desk. As South Korea's leading military commander, Park had seen his share of crises, but this was different. This was the moment humanity had both dreaded and anticipated for centuries. They were not alone in the universe, and their first visitors did not appear to come in peace. The command center hummed with activity as personnel worked at their stations, their voices kept low and professional despite the gravity of the situation. Screens displayed data streams from monitoring stations across the globe, all tracking the approaching fleet's movement through the solar system. "Sir, we've managed to get better resolution on the largest vessel," reported Lieutenant Kim, her fingers dancing across her console. The main display zoomed in on what appeared to be the fleet's flagship. It was massive. Early estimates suggested it was nearly 3 kilometers in length. Park nodded grimly. "Send the data package to all our international counterparts. I want every military commander on Earth seeing what we're seeing." He paused, then added, "And get me a direct line to the President." 12 light-years away, on the crystalline spires of Drachnus Prime, King Taeho lounged on his luminescent throne. The alien monarch's scaled skin shifted colors in the light that filtered through the palace's transparent walls. He studied the holographic projection of Earth floating before him, his 6-fingered hand idly tapping against the throne's armrest. "Another primitive world," he mused, his voice carrying the distinctive musical tones of the Drachnid royal family. "Rich in resources, ripe for harvest. How many ships have they managed to put in space?" Admiral Han, the king's military advisor, shifted uncomfortably. Unlike his monarch, he had studied the human broadcasts they'd intercepted, analyzed their technological progression, and what he'd seen troubled him deeply. "My king, I must advise caution. The humans have advanced rapidly in the past century. Their military capabilities are irrelevant." Taeho interrupted, his scales flushing a deep crimson with irritation. "They haven't even established permanent colonies beyond their moon. They're children playing with toys." Han persisted, his duty to provide honest counsel overriding his fear of the king's temper. "The humans have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Their weapons technology, while different from ours, shows innovation we haven't seen in other species. They've developed sophisticated AI systems and their quantum computing research." Enough. Taeho's scales now pulsed with angry patterns of red and black. "I did not conquer 37 worlds by being timid, Han. The human world will join my empire, like all the others before it." Back on Earth, Park had just finished briefing the United Nations Security Council. The emergency session had been called within hours of the fleet's detection, and for once, the world's powers were united in purpose. There would be no political squabbling, no competing agendas. Humanity faced an existential threat. "The latest projections show the alien fleet will reach Earth's orbit in approximately 72 hours, Park reported. "Based on their formation and approach vector, we can only assume hostile intent." The Chinese general spoke up next, her voice clear through the secure channel. "We've activated the orbital defense network. All satellites are being repositioned, and ground-based defense systems are at full readiness. The United States Space Force has moved all available vessels into defensive positions," added the American admiral. "But against a fleet of that size." Park understood their concern. Humanity's combined space forces numbered fewer than 50 combat-capable vessels. They were facing thousands. In his palace, King Taeho was giving final orders to his fleet commanders. "You will offer them one chance to surrender," he declared. "When they refuse, you will demonstrate our power by destroying their largest military installation. After that, they will understand the futility of resistance." Han watched silently, his heart heavy. He had seen this pattern before, the king's overwhelming confidence leading to hasty decisions. But this time felt different. Something about the humans' rapid technological advancement, their fierce independence, their endless creativity in the face of challenges. He couldn't shake the feeling that his king was making a terrible mistake. As the first wave of Drachnid ships entered the outer solar system, humanity prepared for the greatest fight in its history. In his command center, Admiral Park watched the approaching fleet and allowed himself a small, grim smile. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species, easy prey for their empire. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Commander Kim stood at the helm of the EDS Defender, Earth's most advanced warship, as she watched the global defense fleet take shape around her. Ships from every major nation converged in high Earth orbit, their hulls bearing the newly created United Earth Defense Force insignia. Through the bridge's panoramic viewport, she could see vessels of all sizes moving into their assigned positions. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "Chinese battle group has reached position Alpha," reported her tactical officer. "Russian and European contingents are synchronized at Beta and Gamma positions. Indian Space Force is providing rear support with their stealth frigates." Kim nodded, studying the tactical display. The fleet's formation was designed to provide overlapping fields of fire while maintaining maximum coverage of Earth's orbital approaches. It wasn't much compared to the incoming alien armada, but every ship had been upgraded with technologies that had remained hidden from public view for decades. Aboard the orbital command station, Admiral Park coordinated with military leaders worldwide. The station's war room was filled with holographic projections showing fleet positions, weapon deployments, and the steady approach of the Drachnid forces. "The Americans have confirmed their quantum missile batteries are online," reported General Wilson from Washington. "All silos are loaded with Mark VI warheads." "The Chinese antimatter catalysts are primed and ready," added Marshal Chen. "We can cover a 60-degree arc of space with full saturation fire." Meanwhile, on Drachnus Prime, General Lee walked through the massive hangar bay of the Crown's Glory. The flagship stretched for kilometers, its dark hull decorated with the royal symbols of the Empire. Around it, 3,000 warships prepared for the invasion, their crews confident in their technological superiority. Lee stopped to watch as loading crews transported the last of the plasma cannons into position. These weapons had shattered the defenses of dozens of worlds, yet something about this mission made him uneasy. Perhaps it was the reports from their advanced scouts, describing the unusual energy readings from Earth's defense grid. "General," called out Commander Song, approaching with a data pad in hand. "The fleet is ready for departure. All ships report full combat readiness." Song was one of the Empire's most decorated warriors, with 15 successful planetary conquests to his name. His scaled face showed no concern as he reviewed the invasion plans. "The humans have positioned their fleet in a defensive formation. Primitive, but logical. They seem to understand basic tactical principles, at least." Lee studied the human fleet positions on the datapad. "They're protecting something. These gaps in their formation. They're not gaps at all. They're firing lanes." "For what?" Song laughed. "Their weapons are centuries behind ours. Our shields can withstand anything they possess." Back on Earth, Commander Kim was conducting final checks of the Defender's special weapons systems. The ship's true capabilities had been kept secret even from most of her crew until now. Behind armored panels throughout the vessel lay technology that would have seemed impossible just a few decades ago. "Zero-point energy core is stable," reported her chief engineer. "Quantum field generators are synchronized. Dark matter sensors are tracking the enemy fleet's approach." Kim allowed herself a small smile. The aliens thought they were facing a primitive species with basic space capability. They didn't know about the breakthrough that had occurred 30 years ago, when scientists had discovered how to harness zero-point energy, or the quantum computing revolution that had given Earth's weapons systems capabilities far beyond conventional technology. In orbit around Drachnus Prime, the invasion fleet began moving into formation. General Lee watched from the Crown's Glory's bridge as thousands of ships took their positions. The sight was impressive. It was the largest fleet deployment in the Empire's history. "Send the activation signal," he ordered. "All ships to battle stations." As the fleet engaged their drive systems, creating a spectacular display of energy against the darkness of space, Commander Song approached Lee again. "The King expects this campaign to last no more than 3 days. He's already planning the victory celebration." Lee didn't respond immediately. He was watching the tactical display, studying the energy readings from Earth. Something about them didn't match what they'd expect from a primitive civilization. The patterns were too organized, too precise. Back on the Defender, Commander Kim received word that the enemy fleet had begun its advance. She opened a channel to all Earth forces, all ships. "This is Commander Kim. We've trained for this moment. We know our capabilities. The enemy expects an easy victory. Let's show them why they're wrong." Around Earth, hidden defense platforms began powering up. Quantum sensors tracked the approaching Drachnid fleet with perfect precision. In underground bunkers, crews armed weapons that would redefine the nature of space warfare. Admiral Park watched it all from the command station, coordinating the complex dance of ships and weapons that would protect humanity. They had one chance to surprise the aliens, to show them that humanity was far more advanced than they believed. They had to make it count. The next few hours would determine the fate of Earth. As Commander Kim prepared her fleet for battle, as General Lee led his invasion force toward Earth, as Commander Song confidently predicted an easy victory, none of them fully understood the scale of the conflict that was about to unfold. Humanity was about to demonstrate why it should never be underestimated. Commander Yoon looked down at Earth from the Global Defense Council's orbital headquarters, his expression stern as he watched the planetary defense grid light up sector by sector. The network of satellites glowed with a faint blue energy as they powered up, forming an intricate web around the planet. Each satellite was connected through quantum entanglement, making them impossible to hack or jam. In the control room behind him, Dr. Kang monitored the grid's activation sequence. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic controls as she fine-tuned the quantum harmonics. As Earth's foremost expert in quantum physics, she had spent the last decade perfecting this defense system. "Grid sectors 1 through 15 are online," she reported, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Quantum synchronization at 98% efficiency." Yoon nodded without turning. "How long until full coverage?" 20 minutes for complete activation. The Southern Hemisphere grid is still calibrating. On the main screen, the massive Drachnid fleet appeared as thousands of red dots approaching from beyond Mars' orbit. They moved with military precision, their formations spreading out to surround Earth. The sight would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. In the Lunar Command Bunker, Dr. Kang's team worked frantically to bring the final defense systems online. The bunker housed the quantum supercomputers that coordinated the entire defense grid, hidden beneath the moon's surface to protect them from attack. "We're detecting energy buildup in the alien fleet," called out one of her technicians. "They're preparing their weapons systems." Dr. Kang's hands flew across the controls, making final adjustments. "Divert more power to the quantum shields. We need full strength before they get into firing range." Above Earth, Commander Yoon received the transmission they had been expecting. General Lee's face appeared on the main screen, his scaled features set in an expression of cold authority. "People of Earth," the alien commander began, his words automatically translated by their computers. "Your planet has been chosen to join the Drachnid Empire. Submit now, and you will be allowed to live as subjects of our great king. Resist, and we will destroy your civilization." Yoon stared at the screen, Remembering the Council's decision, Earth would not respond to threats. Instead, they would let their actions speak for them. The minutes ticked by intense silence. On the Crown's glory, General Lee waited for Earth's response, growing increasingly frustrated. They ignore us, he growled to Commander Song. Send the message again. Song checked his instruments. Sir, we're detecting unusual energy patterns from their defense grid. The readings, they're unlike anything we've seen before. Lee leaned forward, studying the data. The human defenses were generating power levels that should have been impossible for their level of technology. Something was wrong. Back on Earth, Dr. Kang announced, defense grid at full power. All sectors reporting ready status. Commander Yoon opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Commander Yoon to all units. The enemy has made their intentions clear. We will not bow. We will not submit. Today, we show them that humanity is not to be underestimated. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden strengths began to reveal themselves. Stealth platforms that had been invisible even to Drachnid sensors powered up their weapons. Quantum-linked fighter squadrons emerged from concealed bases on Mars and the asteroid belt. On the lunar surface, massive gun emplacements rose from hidden bunkers, their barrels longer than skyscrapers. These were the quantum accelerator cannons, weapons that could tear through space itself to strike their targets. Dr. Kang watched her monitors as the defense grid reached full power. The quantum field generators created an invisible shield around Earth, far more advanced than the simple energy barriers the Drachnids relied on. They're entering weapons range, reported a tactical officer. Commander Yoon straightened his uniform. Let them come closer. Let them think their silence has frightened us. The Drachnid fleet moved steadily forward, their weapons charging. General Lee watched Earth grow larger on his view screen, still waiting for a response to his ultimatum. The human silence confused him. Every other world they had conquered had either begged for mercy or made futile threats. Sir, called out Song, his voice showing concern for the first time. These energy readings from Earth, they're still increasing. Their power output is far beyond what our intelligence suggested was possible. Lee felt a chill run down his spine. The humans weren't responding because they didn't need to. They were waiting for something. Dr. Kang looked up from her station. All systems are ready, Commander. The grid is at maximum power. We can begin at your order. Commander Yoon took one last look at his homeworld below. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, hiding their true capabilities, waiting for the day they would need them. That day had arrived. Send word to all commands, he ordered. Operation Thunderbolt begins in 5 minutes. Show these aliens why Earth should never be taken lightly. As the Drachnid fleet approached their firing positions, they remained unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap ever created by human hands. The silence they had interpreted as fear was about to be broken by the sound of humanity's defiance. The Drachnid fleet opened fire with a massive barrage of plasma torpedoes that lit up space like artificial suns. General Lee stood on his bridge, watching with satisfaction as thousands of energy weapons streaked toward Earth's defenses. This was how every conquest began, a devastating first strike that would shatter the enemy's will to resist. But something impossible happened. As the plasma torpedoes struck Earth's defensive barrier, they simply vanished. There was no explosion, no impact. The weapons disappeared into what looked like ripples in space itself. What happened? Lee demanded, his scales shifting to a pale yellow of confusion. Where did our weapons go? On the EDS Defender, Admiral Park allowed himself a small smile. Quantum disruption shields holding at 100%, reported his tactical officer. The enemy weapons were redirected into subspace. Park opened a channel to all Earth forces. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Show them what humanity can do. The Earth fleet surged forward, their ships moving in perfect coordination. What had appeared to be normal military vessels suddenly transformed as hidden weapons panels slid open, revealing technology the Drachnids had never seen before. The first wave of human attacks struck the alien fleet like lightning. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through Drachnid shields, as if they weren't there. Coherent gravity beams twisted space itself, crushing alien ships like empty soda cans. Dark matter torpedoes created localized singularities that tore enemy vessels apart. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Kang monitored the battle through quantum sensors. "The enemy fleet is attempting to regroup," she reported. "Their shields are adjusting, trying to compensate for our weapons." General Lee watched in horror as his front line crumbled. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. "Impossible," he muttered. "Their technology level, all our intelligence." "Sir," Commander Song's voice was sharp with alarm. "They're using quantum entanglement to coordinate their attacks. Our electronic warfare systems are useless." The space around Earth had become a graveyard of broken Drachnid ships. The human fleet moved with impossible precision, their quantum-linked computers predicting and countering every alien tactic before it could develop. Admiral Park directed the battle with calm efficiency. "Second wave, engage. Activate the gravity lance." Hidden platforms around Earth's orbit powered up, combining their energy into a single massive beam. Space itself bent as the weapon fired, cutting through the Drachnid fleet like a hot knife through butter. On the Crown's glory, General Lee fought to maintain control of his forces, reform the line, concentrate fire on their capital ships. But the humans had another surprise waiting. As the Drachnid fleet concentrated their fire, the targeted human ships simply disappeared, reappearing behind the alien formation. Short-range teleportation, another technology the Drachnids had thought impossible for centuries. "How?" Song demanded, watching another squadron of their ships disappear in quantum fire. "How did they hide this level of technology?" The battle transformed into chaos for the Drachnid forces. Their rigid military doctrine, successful against countless other species, failed against humanity's innovative tactics and impossible technology. Earth ships seemed to ignore the laws of physics, appearing and disappearing at will, their weapons bypassing shields that had never failed before. Admiral Park coordinated with Dr. Kang to spring the final trap. "Quantum grid at full power," she reported, ready to initiate the phase shift. As the Drachnid fleet struggled to maintain formation, the quantum defense grid surrounding Earth pulsed with energy. Space itself seemed to ripple, and suddenly hundreds of Drachnid ships found themselves out of phase with normal spacetime, their weapons and engines useless. General Lee stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Half his fleet was now effectively paralyzed, trapped in a quantum bubble where their technology simply didn't work. The other half was being systematically destroyed by weapons that weren't supposed to exist. "Full retreat," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "All ships, emergency withdrawal." But retreat wasn't as simple as he hoped. The humans had positioned quantum disruption fields throughout the solar system, creating corridors that forced the Drachnid ships to withdraw along predicted paths. Admiral Park watched the enemy fleet's desperate attempt to escape. "All ships, execute final attack pattern. Let's make sure they remember this day." Earth's fleet moved as one, their coordinated attack turning the Drachnid retreat into a rout. Ships that had proudly borne the Empire's colors for centuries were reduced to drifting wreckage. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Kang allowed herself a moment of pride. Years of secret development, careful planning, and hidden technology had paid off. The Drachnids had expected to find a primitive species barely capable of spaceflight. Instead, they found humanity at its finest, innovative, determined, and far more advanced than anyone had suspected. General Lee stood on his crippled flagship, watching the remains of his fleet scatter across the solar system. "Send word to the Empire," he ordered quietly. "Earth is not what we thought. They are not primitive. They are not weak. And they are definitely not ready for conquest." The battle for Earth was ending, but its impact would echo across the galaxy. Humanity had revealed itself as a power to be reckoned with, and the Drachnid Empire had learned a costly lesson about underestimating their opponents. In the depths of Lunar Base Alpha, Dr. Kang stood before a massive quantum computer core, her hands hovering over the final activation sequence. Around her, technicians monitored walls of holographic displays showing the ongoing space battle. The moment they had prepared for had arrived. Initiating drone swarm activation, she announced, her fingers dancing across the controls. Quantum AI Core online. Release protocols engage. Across the solar system, hidden hangars burst open. Thousands of sleek, dark drones emerged like angry wasps from their nests. Each drone was smaller than a fighter, but packed with technology that made them more dangerous than ships 10 times their size. Commander Kim watched from the bridge of her command ship as the drone swarm joined the battle. All ships, clear a path. Let the drones do their work. The AI-controlled drones moved with impossible speed and coordination. Their quantum processors allowed them to think and react faster than any organic pilot could manage. They flowed through space like a living tide, targeting weaknesses in the Drachnid fleet that only their advanced algorithms could detect. On the Crown's glory, General Lee's tactical display erupted with new warnings. "What are these things?" he demanded, watching as the swarm tore through his defensive lines. The drones attacked with surgical precision, their quantum-tipped weapons slicing through Drachnid shields as if they weren't there. They'd moved in patterns too complex for organic minds to predict, coordinated by an AI that could calculate 1,000,000 possible scenarios per second. Captain Choi led her strike team toward the Drachnid command ships, using the chaos created by the drone swarm as cover. Her stealth ships, barely larger than shuttles, carried elite teams trained for ship-to-ship combat. "Team Alpha, prepare for boarding action," she ordered, her voice steady despite the explosions surrounding them. "Target the flagship's command section." On Drachnus Prime, Kane Tahoe received the battle reports with increasing rage. His scales flashed dangerous patterns of red and black as he watched his mighty fleet being torn apart by machines he hadn't known existed. "Incompetent fools," he roared, smashing a holographic display. "I want those human vermin crushed. I want their world in flames." But his commanders could do little against Earth's devastating new weapons. Commander Kim coordinated with the drone swarm, launching relativistic kill vehicles. Massive projectiles accelerated to near light speed. When they struck, they hit with the force of nuclear weapons, their simple kinetic energy enough to vaporize even the largest Drachnid ships. Dr. Kang monitored the battle through quantum sensors, directing the AI to adjust its attack patterns. The drones learned and adapted with each engagement, becoming more effective with every passing minute. "Drone efficiency at 120% of projected levels," she reported. "The AI is exceeding our expectations." Captain Choi's strike team breached the hull of a Drachnid command ship, their quantum phase cutters slicing through the supposedly impenetrable armor. Inside, they moved like ghosts through the corridors, their advanced stealth suits making them nearly invisible. "Bridge secured," she reported, standing over the unconscious forms of Drachnid officers. "Uploading virus to their command network now." The virus, a quantum-based program designed by Dr. Kang, spread through the Drachnid fleet's communication systems. Ship after ship lost control of their weapons and engines as the program rewrote their operating systems. General Lee watched helplessly as his fleet fell into chaos. The drones were everywhere now, their attacks coordinated with an efficiency that no organic commander could match. Earth's main fleet pressed their advantage, their weapons tearing through the disorganized Drachnid formations. "My king," he transmitted to Drachnus Prime, "we cannot win this battle. The humans, they're too advanced. Their technology." "I don't want excuses," King Tahoe screamed back. "I want victory. Use the planet-killer weapons if you must." But even as the Drachnid ships prepared their most devastating weapons, the drone swarm struck again. Quantum sensors had detected the power buildup, and the AI directed a massive coordinated strike at every ship carrying planet-killer weapons. Commander Kin watched with grim satisfaction as the threat was eliminated. All ships pressed the attack. Don't let them regroup. Captain Choi's teams had taken control of 3 command ships now, turning their weapons against their former fleet. The Drachnid command structure was collapsing, their sophisticated battle networks turned against them by Earth's quantum virus. Dr. Kang's fingers flew across her controls as she directed the AI to launch its final attack pattern. The drones formed into a massive sphere surrounding what remained of the Drachnid fleet. Their weapons fired in perfect synchronization, creating a web of destructive energy that nothing could escape. On his throne, King Tahoe received the final reports with disbelief. His invincible fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being systematically destroyed by a species he had dismissed as primitive. His scales had turned a sickly pale color as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. General Lee made his final transmission as the Crown's glory systems failed around him. "Let it be known," he said to anyone who could hear, "that we did not lose to primitives today. We lost to a species that had surpassed us while we weren't looking." The drone swarm continued its relentless attack, guided by an intelligence that never tired, never hesitated, and never showed mercy. Earth's fleet followed in their wake, finishing what the drones began. The tide of war had turned, and the Drachnid Empire was about to learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, massive underwater doors slowly opened. From the hidden facility designated Deep Star, humanity's most devastating weapons emerge. Antimatter torpedoes, each containing enough power to vaporize a small moon, rose toward the surface on automated platforms. Admiral Park stood on his command bridge, watching the weapons deployment on his tactical display. "All ships, move to safe distance," he ordered. "Antimatter weapons are armed and tracking." The human fleet executed a perfectly coordinated withdrawal, leaving the battered Drachnid forces in an optimum target zone. The aliens, still reeling from the drone swarm attacks, failed to notice the new threat rising from Earth's oceans. Dr. Kang worked furiously at her quantum computers, her fingers flying across holographic keys. "I've almost cracked their encryption," she reported. "Their tactical network has weaknesses we can exploit." The first antimatter torpedo streaked into space, its quantum drive leaving a trail of distorted reality in its wake. General Lee, aboard the damaged Crown's Glory, noticed the new contact too late. "Unknown weapon approaching." His tactical officer shouted. "Energy readings are off the scale." The torpedo detonated, and space itself seemed to tear apart. A sphere of pure annihilation expanded outward, consuming 3 Drachnid capital ships in an instant. The surrounding vessels, their shields overwhelmed by the blast, spun helplessly as their systems failed. "Now," Admiral Park commanded, "execute Operation Shatterpoint." The Earth fleet moved with surgical precision, exploiting gaps in the enemy formation created by the antimatter blast. Ships that had been hiding in the quantum shadow of Mars emerged, catching the Drachnids in a devastating crossfire. Dr. Kang's voice came over the command channel. "Encryption broken. We have access to their tactical network, uploading their communications to all ships now." The Drachnid battle commands filled human communication channels, their strategies and weaknesses laid bare. Captain Choi, leading her strike team through the Crown's Glory's corridors, listened intently to the enemy communications. "They're trying to regroup around the flagship," she reported, moving to prime position for core detonation. General Lee felt his mighty ship shudder as more antimatter weapons found their marks among his fleet. His tactical display showed his forces being systematically torn apart, their formation shattered by the humans' devastating new weapons. "All ships, Emergency Protocol 7. He ordered, his voice carrying the edge of desperation. "Reform around the Crown's Glory. We must protect the flagship." But his orders were being broadcast directly to Earth's forces. Admiral Park smiled grimly as he coordinated the next phase of the attack. "All ships, target these coordinates. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth." More antimatter torpedoes rose from the ocean, their paths carefully calculated to drive the Drachnid fleet into a killing zone. The human fleet moved in perfect synchronization, their attacks guided by the enemy's own tactical data. Inside the Crown's glory, Captain Choi's team reached the main reactor room. They moved silently, their quantum stealth suits making them invisible to Drachnid sensors. The massive power core pulsed with energy before them. "Charges set," she reported quietly. "All teams, clear the ship. We have 5 minutes." General Lee felt the shift in his ship's power systems too late. Alarms blared across the bridge as the reactor began its catastrophic overload. "Evacuate," he ordered, but the humans had locked down all escape pods. Dr. Kang watched through quantum sensors as the Crown's Glory's power core reached critical levels. Detonation in 30 seconds. All ships clear the blast radius. The flagship of the Drachnid fleet erupted in a spectacular explosion, its destruction symbolizing the breaking of alien military might. The blast wave caught several nearby ships, adding to the chaos of the battle. Admiral Park directed the final phase of the attack. More antimatter weapons found their marks, each detonation removing another chunk of the once proud invasion fleet. The Drachnid formation, already splintered, began to completely disintegrate. General Lee, having barely escaped the destruction of his flagship in a damaged shuttle, watched in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. The humans had not just matched Drachnid technology, they had surpassed it in ways he hadn't thought possible. "This is General Lee to all surviving ships," he transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. "Prepare for emergency withdrawal. The humans, they are beyond us now." But even retreat proved impossible as Earth's forces pressed their advantage. More antimatter weapons streaked through space, their detonations cutting off escape routes and trapping the remaining Drachnid ships in a web of destruction. Dr. Kang continued to feed enemy communications to the fleet, allowing human forces to anticipate and counter every attempted maneuver. The battle had transformed from a fight into a systematic dismantling of one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Admiral Park stood on his bridge, watching as the last pockets of resistance were eliminated. Earth had revealed its true strength, and the price for threatening humanity had proven devastating. The Drachnid Empire would never forget this day. The day their invincible fleet broke against Earth's defenses like waves against a cliff. Commander Kim watched from her bridge as the broken remnants of the Drachnid fleet scattered like leaves in a storm. The once mighty armada had been reduced to barely 300 ships, most of them damaged and struggling to maintain power. "All ships, execute pursuit protocol," she ordered, her voice firm. "Don't let them escape to warn their empire." Not yet. Earth's fleet moved with predatory grace, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. The quantum drive signatures of the human ships created a beautiful but deadly light show as they chased down their prey. General Lee, aboard his crippled escape shuttle, knew the end was near. His tactical display showed human ships closing in from all directions, their weapons charged and ready. With trembling hands, he activated a secure channel to Drachnus Prime. "My king," he began, his voice heavy with defeat and realization. "I must warn you. We were wrong about the humans. Catastrophically wrong." On his crystalline throne, King Taiho's scales had turned ash-gray with rage and fear. The holographic displays around him showed the systematic destruction of his fleet, a sight he had never imagined possible. "These humans," Lee continued, "they are not primitives to be conquered. They are not weak or technologically inferior. They have surpassed us in ways we didn't think possible. And now they know we exist." Commander Kim coordinated with the drone swarms as they hunted down fleeing Drachnid vessels. Each enemy ship was methodically disabled or destroyed, their escape routes cut off by precisely calculated quantum interference fields. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Kane monitored the final phase of the battle. "Enemy ships are attempting to activate their long-range jump drives," she reported, initiating quantum disruption field. Space itself seemed to ripple as Earth's defensive grid activated one last time. The Drachnid ships found their jump drives useless, trapped in normal space by forces they barely understood. Admiral Park stood on the orbital command station, watching the end of the battle unfold. Humanity's first interstellar war, he mused quietly. And they never saw our true strength coming. General Lee made his final transmission, knowing it would be his last act as a military commander. My king, you must prepare the Empire. The humans will not forget this attack. They will not forgive. And now they know the way to our worlds. The remaining Drachnid ships, realizing escape was impossible, began to power down their weapons. One by one, they transmitted surrender signals, their proud crews facing a reality they had never contemplated, defeat at the hands of a species they had dismissed as unworthy. Commander Kim directed the capture operations with precise efficiency. All surrendered vessels will be boarded and secured. We need their navigation data, their technology, everything they can tell us about their empire. On Earth, the Global Defense Council convened an emergency session. The holographic representatives of every major nation gathered to discuss humanity's new reality. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they were now at war with a vast alien empire. We must prepare, Admiral Park told the council. This was only their first fleet. The Empire will send more once they learn what happened here. Dr. Kang presented her analysis of the captured Drachnid technology. Their faster-than-light drives used principles we've already surpassed. Their weapons are powerful but predictable. We can defend against anything they send. General Lee's shuttle was the last enemy vessel to be captured. As Earth forces took him into custody, he looked out at his destroyed fleet with a mixture of sadness and respect. You hide your strength well, humans, he said to his captors. The Empire never stood a chance. The victory was complete, but humanity knew this was just the beginning. The Drachnid Empire would not accept this defeat quietly. They would return, probably with an even larger fleet, determined to avenge this humiliation. Commander Kim toured the captured Crown's glory, now a silent testament to humanity's defensive capabilities. Begin analyzing every piece of technology, she ordered her teams. We need to be ready for their return. Admiral Park stood before the Global Defense Council one last time that day. Today we have shown the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with. But tomorrow we must prepare for a war unlike any in human history. As Earth's ships began towing their prizes back to orbit, as capture teams downloaded alien databases, as scientists started studying Drachnid technology, humanity's position in the cosmos had irrevocably changed. They were no longer an isolated species on a single world. They were now a power to be reckoned with, a force that had broken one of the galaxy's mightiest fleets. The stars above Earth seemed different now, glittering with both promise and threat. Humanity had won its first interstellar battle, but the war was just beginning. And this time, they would not have the advantage of surprise.